Welcome to the Heroic Minds podcast, where we uncover the heroic stories of individuals battling through adversity and rising to the top of professional sport, business, and life, uncovering the characteristics, the secrets, the tactics to become the hero of your own story, because it is adversity that maximizes human potential. Welcome back to the Heroic Minds podcast. On today's episode, we have Shawn Matthias. He played 10 incredible years in the NHL. But what happens when someone moves on from playing a professional sport and they have to redefine themselves, find out who they really are, or learn about things they never had to do because they were always sheltered in this, as Shawn would say, this box that can be the hockey world, or for others, professional sport, or committing to something so much you forget about the outside world. And what if we made that a bigger part of an athlete's journey, that time away from the game? And what are the benefits that can come from that? In this episode, this truly is a conversation I never thought I would have with someone that played 10 years in the National Hockey League. From how the ego is the enemy, to wake-up calls from a visit to Africa, spirituality, negative lifestyle habits due to assumptions that we have as athletes, finding out who you really are. And the fact that just because you move on from playing a sport and you may be in a good financial position, that doesn't necessarily mean retirement. So we bounce all over the place. It's an incredible episode. I truly look up to Shawn. He's been out of the game for only 1 year, and this year has been an incredible journey, and he takes us through it on this episode. Before we get to that, remember to check out truelocal.ca. It's an unbelievable company. They put personal notes in all your boxes, and what is in the box? High quality meat that you choose online. You pick when the box arrives, you choose what exactly you want, and the meat shows up on dry ice, stays frozen for 4 days in the box, even if you don't put it in the freezer. And this high quality meat is locally sourced, tastes amazing, it's incredible. I encourage you to check out truelocal.ca. And if you do, order the turkey bacon. It's absolutely unbelievable. Treat yourself. And if you want to give them a try, 1, use my discount code. 2, you can cancel it whenever you want, no extra fees. You also decide the interval. It can get dropped off once a month, once every 2 months, once every 3 months, you decide. But if you're going to give them a try, my discount code is HeroicMinds25, all capital letters, to get $25 off a regular size box and $10 off a personal size box. Alrighty, here we go. What was your favorite memory on ice in game? Was it a goal? Was it an assist? What was if someone says, think of the most excited you were, I guess, on the ice, when would that have been?
Winning World Juniors. I was on the ice for the winning goal when Halicchuk scored, and that was, other than AAA hockey, I mean, that was the biggest thing I won. I never won anything else. So that was really exciting. It meant a lot. My family was there. It was overseas, and you're carrying a lot of weight in that tournament. You're playing for Canada. And we didn't have Instagram or Twitter back then. That wasn't around yet. So we didn't have those pressures. But we definitely had Facebook, and it wasn't as crazy as it would be now. But still a lot of people get behind you. And you do feel the pressure, but it helped me grow up a lot, that experience. It's only a month long, but it was I grew a lot as a person throughout that month.
It's interesting how you can play 10 years in the NHL, and when you think of the first memory, it was actually before you were even in the NHL. And I mean, I know World Juniors is high level, but that's interesting, an interesting message in itself, right? That World Juniors from before you even were in the NHL is the fun, an exciting memory, because everyone would think from the outside looking in that of course it would be something in the NHL.
Yeah, when I look back at it, just the way we developed throughout that whole training camp, you get to know the guys. You're living in pretty tight quarters. You're in a hotel, but you got a roommate, and guys are always hanging out. You're not really you actually weren't allowed to leave the hotel unless it was with the team. So we had like a common area down on the main level that we could go hang out. So you do everything with these guys that you really just met. And then you go to war with them very soon. You go to this tournament where everyone feels that weight of playing for Canada. It's hard to explain, but you feel you have to win. They stress to you have to win this tournament. It means everything to Canada. And that's a lot of pressure for some of the guys who were only 16 years old. And I was 19 in the tournament. And then to actually accomplish our goal, there was a lot of work put into it, and to win that tournament and hear our anthem at the end of it, and then get a gold medal around your neck. I mean, that's something I'll never forget.
All those lessons from the time you're 16 to 21 in we'll say sport, but for you it was junior hockey. Do you think there's still messages and the same thing that comes out of professional hockey? Is it the same? Are there different lessons? Are there different things that you learned about that you didn't know in junior?
Well, there's a lot of good lessons and bad lessons in both leagues, right? In pro hockey, I mean, you're hanging around some guys that have kids and a wife, and it's different. You're not going after practice to somebody's place to play mini sticks like you would in junior with 20 of the guys, or going to a movie night with all the guys. It's different. You're more on your own, and it makes you grow up real quick. It's more of a job. Obviously, you're getting paid a lot of money to do it, and it feels that way some days. And you got to get your act together. You can't be depending on your billet family or really anyone. It comes down to you being a good professional and doing the right things away from the game. And it's a whole different set of lessons that you're learning at both levels.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah. Cause people say that pro, and I wouldn't know because I wasn't there, but I know it's an interesting conversation. I know a lot of people that say, oh, pro is not like junior. It's a job. So it's not as enjoyable, et cetera, et cetera. And I wouldn't know. I'm indifferent. I really don't know if that's true or not. It's just what people that I know around the hockey world like to say. So
it's a lot of fun. Like, there's a lot of fun to it. It's you're doing what you were a little kid dreaming about. It's your dream. You're living your dream. It's the best thing in the world. But it is tough. I mean, if you look at junior hockey, you get your meals made for you. There's not a whole lot of worry in the world. It's just kind of everything's done for you. And in pro hockey, it is too. I mean, if you need a flight booked out for your family or anything, someone else is doing that for you. You don't really handle too much. It's just, but it is tougher. You don't get away with as much, and it's unique. It's a tough way of growing up, but it's what you dream about. I wouldn't change anything.
That's cool. So now going on to that first thought, like I said, we touched on that you never think the end's going to come. You never think you'll have to move on from playing. When was that? Or did you think of that as a kid, I guess, as a question? And if not, when was that first thought? At what point was it in your career that you realized, this, not right now, but at some point this might come to an end?
Well, I never thought about it, to be honest. If you could check off all the boxes of what not to do in retirement or how someone would act, I'd probably check a lot of those boxes. I honestly never did. Like, I would recommend to players to think about those things, but it's tough. You're in the moment. You're training so hard for a sport. I personally just never really thought much about what else I wanted to do. It was just hockey 24/7 for me. And then I signed 2 years in Winnipeg. In my first year in Winnipeg, I suffered 3 pretty big injuries, and one of them needed surgery. And when that happened, I kind of thought my days in the NHL were numbered. My body was feeling different. I did my knee in pretty bad at the beginning of the year, and it just wasn't feeling the same. And then to have shoulder surgery, and then just you start thinking about all the injuries, and then to work hard all summer long, and then to get to camp and just kind of feel like I was in a different body. Just those injuries were lingering, and not play my best, and to start becoming a healthy scratch. I kind of felt like it might be the time for me to walk away from the game. It was a tough decision, but I knew it before I started telling everyone. I knew last year going into the off season that a contract wasn't coming my way, and I wasn't really interested in going to Europe or anything. I was just more interested in getting on with the rest of my life and being a good family man and moving forward and being a positive influence in any way I could, and learning a lot about myself, growing as a person. I mean, I knew myself as only a hockey player back then, and the last year of my life has been crazy what I've learned about myself.
I love that. Before we dive into that, I'm curious as to why you decided not to pursue pro in another league or somewhere else. Why it was easier, or maybe it wasn't easy, but why you decided to move on.
Definitely wasn't easy. I mean, I thought I would have an easy time with retirement. That's the honest truth. I thought it would be simple. I thought I would figure it out. I'd have a job in no time, something that I love. It's just obviously life doesn't work out that way. But it's been grueling some days, but it's been great. I'm loving the journey. But I thought if I can't play at the highest level and I can't play against the best players in the world, that's all I ever wanted to do. I wanted to test myself against the best hockey players in the world. And when that wasn't a reality anymore, I mean, I just wasn't as interested. And maybe I started losing interest a couple of years ago, to be totally honest. But I always loved the game, but there was other things in life that I wanted to do as well and pursue. And I don't know, it was just, you start getting hurt as well, and you start thinking, well, I want to be able to run around with my kids when I'm older and do all these other things. And it's looking at it now, I mean, I've had my knees not the same, my shoulders definitely not the same, and taken a lot of hits to the head and put a lot of punishment and a lot of miles on my body. And 10 years is a long time at this level, but also 4 years of junior hockey and AAA hockey when we were younger was a lot more physical than it is today. We didn't know anything about head hits. You tried to hit guys in the head. You wanted that big head hit. That's what we grew up watching on the TV, right? And they promoted that. So I got to a point where I thought my health was more important. I thought I had accomplished what I wanted to accomplish in the game. I always thought I would go spend a couple of years in Europe, but last time I went to Europe during the lockout, I had a couple of guys take runs at me, and I ended up getting knocked out and going to the hospital. So
Wow.
maybe there was a little bit of fear in that decision, but I don't think so. I mean, I think I played at the highest level there that you can, and I competed as hard as I could and grew a lot from it. But there's also, now it's time for me to grow as a person, as a man, and build other things in my life other than just my hockey career. I want to build a family and leave a legacy behind that's not just a hockey player.
Wow. And so did you just realize that you had that in you, I guess? Did you think when you were in the midst of your career, wow, there's still things I want to accomplish outside of the game? When you were in the middle, let's say year 5, was that even a thought, or did you come to that as you exited the game?
I would say after my second year in Vancouver. So I got traded, I can't remember the year, it's probably 13-14 season. And then at the end of 14-15, going into free agency for the first time, I thought, well, no one has my rights anymore. So there's no better time than to go traveling. And I started traveling, and then I did some more traveling after each season and started seeing different parts of the world and really opening my eyes to things that I never even thought about before, testing myself in ways that I never thought I would. And some of those things being skydiving and bungee jumping, some things I thought I would never do in my life because I was too scared. And then through those experiences came more experiences. And then I really started diving in and being like, why was I scared of this? I'm going to try this. Like, I want to do this. I want to see what this is all about. I want to learn more. I want to be as open-minded as possible. So I would say probably at the end of that Vancouver stint, that's definitely where I started to change a lot of my ways and how I saw the world. And through that, it kept snowballing. More and more things started happening, and my interest started leaving the game. It's I don't know if it's just maturity or what it was, but I loved hockey. I put everything into it, but there was a part of me inside that just needed to discover and try new things.
Cool. I like that a lot. And has that fear, or overcoming those fears, has it changed the way you've set out the rest of your life, I guess, from here? Like, is there still things you haven't found out about yourself? Are there fears you're still planning on overcoming? Is there what's planned, I guess, down the road?
Well, I'm always trying to learn about myself. I read a lot of books. I listen to a lot of podcasts, a lot of lectures, and trying to be the best version of myself. And I don't think you can ever be fully satisfied with what you know or how you see the world. I think you're constantly growing as a person. But fear, I mean, yeah, I'm scared. I'm scared every day. I mean, I think about even this podcast just opening up and showing people who I am away from the game is the scariest thing I think I've ever dealt with in my life. I mean, you go through 25 years being age 5 up until 30 playing a game, and you think of yourself as just a hockey player, and then all of a sudden one day it's over and you're being asked at the local grocery store, what do you do now? And you don't even have an answer for someone you don't even know. So it's scary. But through that, it's an adventure, and I like it. It's fun. It's like a fun journey I'm on now. No one controls my time. And I had trouble with that in pro. I didn't like being told what to do throughout the whole day. I never liked getting a schedule the day before that had my whole day planned out for me. I like to take time for myself and kind of relax. And pro and me probably didn't mix well because it was I felt like I was just controlled a lot. But now I have free time myself, and I can really explore the things I'm interested in, and things I never even thought I'd be interested in. It's crazy how the world works. But yeah, I'm definitely scared every day to just really open up and be who I am. It's you feel like sometimes you're stuck in this box as a hockey player. You got to act a certain way, be a certain way. Like if all the guys are going out getting this, I got to get that too. And it's tough to kind of break away from that. But I felt like for my own personal growth as a person and to be the best version of myself, it was the time in my life to kind of walk away from hockey. And believe me, I could be in Europe right now still chasing it and playing the game, but I don't know if I'd be as happy as I am today if I had made those decisions.
What is it you have learned about yourself now that you would want to talk about or share on this podcast, or something you've realized you actually have an interest in that you never would have brought up in a hockey locker room?
Oh man, where do I start? Yeah, I still get freaked out to even post stuff on social media, me doing other things. It's funny how warped your brain kind of gets to those things. I mean, I think I think we're all just kind of programmed a little bit for hockey, and you kind of got to be. If your focus isn't totally on something, I mean, you can't expect yourself to be the best at it. I'm sure Sidney Crosby and McDavid, they think and breathe hockey 24/7. And but then again, a lot of guys they have their things away from the game, right? There's a lot of guys that are hunters or fishermen and golf or play musical instruments. All those things I've tried to get into and exploring. And I think it's good to have an escape from the game because it will drive you crazy. Like if you're thinking hockey 24/7, for me anyways, it will make you mad because you can't be perfect. It's a game of mistakes. And I go work at camp with some kids, and some of these kids are gripping their stick and freaking out and that they made a little mistake. And I was the same way. And I look at it now and I go, just calm down, relax. It's okay. Mistakes are going to happen. They're going to happen in life, and they're going to happen in the rink. And it's a game of mistakes, and you're going to grow and learn and be better if you can let those things go. And that's the toughest part in pro hockey. It's like your mistakes are just really put on a pedestal. You know, you're in video meetings, and if there's a goal and you messed up, well, you're hearing about it. And now you hear about the game. Oh, you can't yell at, which I agree with. You shouldn't have talked to your players the way they used to. But you know, when I was younger, it was different. You got pretty much embarrassed in a video meeting and yelled at and said some things that you can't say in any other line of business. You could never say this if you worked at a bank. You can never talk to one of your employees the way that it sometimes happens in these video meetings. But I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation too. How the culture of the game has changed. Do you really think going back? Because I know you said you really do have to almost be obsessed with it to be the best and compete against the best in the world. If you go back, do you think now that you've had this breath of fresh air of other experiences in life, do you think you could maintain that while playing? And I ask just because with Vic, when we chatted about things, when he took 2 years away from the game or a year and a half and then comes back and and I think ironically was competing with you at times for a roster spot. He said, you know, that freedom, that lackadaisical mindset, no worries, no foul kind of thing. He said that only lasted so long. But for you personally, I mean, he's a different person. Do you think that now having this realization, these other interests, these learning about yourself, do you think you could maintain that going back if you had the opportunity?
I think it would have helped me, yes. I think if I had an escape from hockey when I was younger, if it was fishing or whatever, I think that definitely would have helped, because there was a lot of days where I would only be thinking about the game before, or thinking about getting ready for camp, and I'm not fit enough, and I would start stressing about that. Is my body fat where I want it to be? And it always was by the end of the summer, but so I did a lot of worrying that I really didn't need to do. So I think if I put more emphasis on having a hobby and focusing mainly on that when I'm doing it, because I would go golfing and do all the things a lot of other players were doing, but my mind is still on hockey. So it's hard. It's hard to turn that off. I find now that I'm doing other things, like I'm getting better at a lot of other things that I was doing while I played, but I'm putting all my energy and all my focus into that now. So it's interesting, but you look around the league, a lot of the top end players, I mean, I played with Bufflin. He's a very big outdoorsman, and when the season's done, you don't see him. He's just fishing. So, and I played with Stephen Weiss, who had a great career, and when the season was done, he was just golfing all the time. So I think for some guys, it definitely helps.
And how would you, I mean, those examples alone are very powerful for a younger audience, or the people in the game today that are coming up and NHL hopefuls, as obviously thousands are. How do you think you get that message across to, and this is kind of putting you on the spot, but how would you try to get that message across to young players and, more importantly, young coaches or coaches that are also trying to get to the next level? Because I know it's still a culture of, if you're doing anything other than playing hockey, you're not committed to the game, and you're not committed to the team. So I guess, how would you try to get that point across?
Well, what kind of men do you want to build, right? Do you want to build someone who's just one-dimensional, or has many different facets and is an interesting person? I mean, if you're looking for leadership qualities, I don't think someone who's going to have all those traits is someone who's just played one thing or done one thing in their life. I mean, you hear about these kids now who, if they have a tournament or a big game the next day, they're not going to school. And it's like, okay, well, if you're going to be the best version of yourself, and you're going to be a positive influence, and you're going to make all these great changes, it shouldn't just be in one thing. It shouldn't just be in sport. It's a game. It's just a game. And you have to be a good person in this life. And I think sometimes that gets away from people. I mean, doing a lot of different things, playing different sports, is going to help that kid grow and help that person grow into a better version of themselves. And we get too caught up in pushing so hard in one thing. It's like, the kid's going to go nuts. Like, there's no question about that. Like, if you can push a kid so hard before it goes nuts, you got to listen to your kid, communicate. I don't think there's good enough communication out there. Ask your son or daughter who's playing sport if they're happy. Ask them if they're, talk to them, because too many times you push them into everything. The kid could be exhausted and not tell you, because I know I wouldn't. I would just keep nodding my head and just keep pushing and keep pushing. And then all of a sudden, at one point, you're just like, all right, now it's time to rebel a little bit. I'm going to go do some things that I normally wouldn't, because I need to get some weight off my shoulders. So there seems to be a disconnect with communication at those levels. I mean, I don't like seeing a young player being yelled at from a coach in AAA hockey. You should be developing that young person. You should be developing them into a good person. And there's a lot of great lessons you can learn in the game, but sometimes that gets a little bit blurred because we're so focused on getting to the NHL. Well, it's a process. You got to enjoy the journey. You're not going to just wake up and be good enough for the NHL. It's going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of time and patience, and you're eventually going to get there if you put all that together. But to be 8 years old going to the rink every day, I mean, I've watched a lot of podcasts where it talks about kids don't peak when they're 12 years old. I mean, we're all running this race to try and get to this point. Some of us are going to have a very quick start, and slow down in the middle. You want to keep that pace. The person who keeps that pace and just keeps improving, getting better and better and better, that's who's going to win that race. And when you win the race, you get to the NHL. And maybe if we had more of that when we were younger, more people talking to us and communicating, maybe there'd be some help with transitioning out of the game and thinking more outside of just a hockey game, right? So it's tough. It's tough to answer that because I have no idea. I have no kids. I don't know how to push them or anything, but I know as a player who put everything into it, I wish I did have an escape and look at it not like it was my life, because I treated it like it was my life, and it's not life. It's a hockey. It's a sport. It's a game. It's not. But it's a tough one. That's $1 million question. Do you put everything into it? You look at a guy like Marner, right? You hear about his dad spending as much as he did on his development and all that. Well, it worked out for Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner's probably my favorite player to watch right now. But there's a lot of kids that are doing that, and it doesn't work out for them. And then they're left with, like, these big scars. Like, imagine you put everything you have into a game, and it doesn't work out for you, and you have nothing, you've thought about nothing else. I mean, that's gonna mentally mess you up, and then that's causing bigger problems. And there's a big disconnect in the locker room than there is in real life. I mean, you're not living real life playing the NHL. You're living a dream. You really are. It's amazing. It's an amazing career. It's an amazing world. I'm so thankful and grateful for everything it gave me. But at the end of the day, once you go into the real world, I mean, it's a different monster. Especially if you're like me, who played in the OHL and didn't pursue school.
Yeah, what was that? I guess what was that like, or what was that realization, epiphany like when you exited the game and thought there's even things just outside that I need to be educated on that I didn't even know?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of like your big oh shit moment, right? It's like I said before, it's a big adventure. It's awesome. It's like you're exploring everything for the first time. It's been a lot of fun in that way. Some days it's stressful and I get a little bit down and miss the game, but I mean, I'm trying to get over it and stay as positive as possible. That's the biggest thing too, I noticed, is like it's easy to leave the game and get negative feelings towards the game. It's tough to keep that, and that's with everything in life, right? Everyone, especially the world we live in now, it's easier to be negative, but trying to look at everything positively. It's been a pretty crazy year in my life, and from last year watching the Stanley Cup playoffs up in the press box with the guys and stuff, and now watching it on TV with my dog and wife. It's been a huge whirlwind, but just trying to look at all the positives that I got out of the game.
I'm curious about the thought going through a professional athlete's mind when they are in the press box. And the reason I ask is because many people from the outside looking in would assume, oh, but it's okay, they're in the press box making so much money. And people just brush it off as if it's not that difficult. And I wondered, is there some truth to that? Does that help? Or is it like, what's that experience like, knowing you're in the best league in the world, but it's your night off, unfortunately?
Yeah, I think you're being paid a lot of money. You're living your dream, and you're part of a team. And being part of a team, sometimes you got to do things you don't want to do for the betterment of the team. And I would have loved to have been playing, but hey, they asked me to be in the press box, so I got to take that. That was a good lesson for me to let go of my ego. I mean, we all have egos, and sometimes it gets the best of us, but you got to put that aside and for the betterment of the team in that case. And as a person, I mean, it helped me grow because, I mean, we all struggle with our ego and especially in sports. So it can kind of get away from me at times, but I think I focus a lot on my ego now. And what I mean by that is just not letting it get the best of me. We're all guilty of that. It's like my wife says, she'll say, you shouldn't worry about what people say to you, negative and positively. And I always like thought about that. I'm like, how many times, like, if someone says, "Oh, you look good today," and you take that and you're like, "Oh," it gives you. But why is that really affecting you? Like, why does something someone else say about you, especially your appearance? Like, why does that make your day? Why would that ruin your day if it's negative? It shouldn't. You should be walking at a calmness and being okay with yourself and being secure. And I think sometimes the game kind of messed me up a little bit when it came to that, and I don't think I'd be the only one, maybe the only one to admit that. But like when we talk about being in the stands and stuff, like, I do say I had no problem with it, and I didn't. I really didn't have a problem with it. I knew it was what the team needed. I had a lot of fun. Like, who am I to go into a dressing room and make it about myself? I hear these guys putting everything on the line to try and win a Stanley Cup, and I was aware of that too. I realized that was probably the closest I'd ever get to the Stanley Cup, so I wanted to see them win it. But when you see a fan say something to you like you're just whatever they will say about you sitting in the press box, your imagination, you can go there. But sometimes there's some nasty things. I don't miss that. I don't miss the keyboard warriors, or which goes back to my first point. It shouldn't bother me, but back then it definitely did at times get to me. Some of the things that were said across social media over the years. I mean, I wish I had, going back to the first point you had, how would the last year help me if I was playing? I mean, I think those things wouldn't have bothered me as much, and I would have been a lot mentally stronger handling those interactions. And even though I wasn't saying anything and reacting to it publicly, I mean, there was a lot of comments that at times really did bother me, and really did cross the line. And I would have handled that better now than I did when I was younger, for sure.
Wow, that's interesting. So would you say you have less of an ego, or just more control of your ego now?
I want to say less of an ego, but I'm not sure if that's possible. I think we all have an ego, right? Everyone does. But I think I'm just more aware of it. Just not putting some thought to my actions now, thinking more rational, and thinking smartly. I mean, it's a tough one. It's a battle that we all face day to day, is trying to keep the reins in on that ego. And I watch a lot of stuff on it, and it really is the enemy. Ego is the enemy. It can make or break you. So I wouldn't say I don't really know how to answer. I would just say I'm more aware of it now.
And so I guess to challenge your ego a little bit, I guess, what were some of those mistakes or decisions you made out of the game that now, looking back, you wish you may have made a bit of a different decision in regards to the transition protocol, we'll say, in quotations?
Well, I think I wouldn't just put all my focus into hockey. Like I said, I mean, when I went to junior, I started not doing so well in school. I let things affect me that I could have handled better, but I think I would have just taken everything I did more seriously. I was putting everything into hockey, then kind of away from the game. I was just kind of, whatever. It is what it is. I got bigger things to do. Well, I should have been enjoying each day and growing more, and putting some of this, but it's hard, right? You're a young man. You're full of confidence and piss and vinegar, and you think you know everything, and you think you have the whole world figured out, and then all of a sudden now I'm 31, but at the time when I stopped playing, I was 30, and I was like, I don't know anything. Like, I don't even really know how to pay a bill. This isn't good. So, and I started seeing that through traveling and stuff. Like, there's nowhere. Like, I saw some stuff in Africa that really stayed with me, and that trip really put a lot of things in check for me. It just really gave me a different outlook on life.
Learning all those things, it brings up the idea of, I guess, value as a person. Would you, now that you know so many other things about the world and are continuing and open to learn more, I just wonder do you feel like you have more to you now? Do you think you're of more value now? And maybe the answer is yes. Maybe it's a conversation. Maybe there is no answer, but to me, it intrigues me. It makes me think that now you have so many other layers to you that you may not have had when you were playing.
I think I'm more capable of having deeper rooted conversations now and putting more thought behind things. I mean, more perspective on things. I would definitely say my perspective on pretty much everything has changed, and I go back to traveling. I think traveling is a great way for people to see that. I mean, I remember driving in Africa and seeing a kid and her mom bathing, and then a couple yards down, someone was collecting water, and then about 40 yards after that, a gentleman was walking down to the water and went to the bathroom. And you see that, and you see where they're living and stuff, and you go, well, who am I to really complain about anything? Like, why do I put so much emphasis on these things that don't really matter? I mean, what matters to me now is my family. That's really it. I mean, I just want to be a happy person. I want to live a positive lifestyle. As long as nobody's hurting anyone else, I have no problem with anyone. I just live simply and listen to people. I mean, there's too many times in this where you're walking around and you're having a conversation with someone, they're not listening to you. And I was guilty of that for a long time too. And it goes back to everything we've been talking about.
Wow. It's so powerful hearing everything you're saying, because it's again, I think for one thing for me is like, it's someone that played 10 years in a league that everyone's trying to get to. And then you're just continuing to list all the benefits and realizations and perspectives that come from actually stepping out of the game. And even though it's scary, it's cool to see that kind of, I can almost visualize it. You're just stepping out of that box that you said that we're in as athletes. Do you say, or would you say, I guess, that there are hobbies now that you wish you had when you were playing? And I mean specifically, and I guess this might go back to the idea of things you wouldn't bring up in a locker room, but are there hobbies like an instrument or something that you wish you had going when you were playing?
Well, my dad was always really good for me. He always stressed to do other things. You need to be doing other things than just hockey. So he actually bought me a guitar for my birthday or Christmas one year when I was about 13, and put me in lessons and pushed me in other sports as well, and tried to get me doing more than just playing hockey. So I think that's a big part of who I am today, was from learning from him. And but to get to your point, I mean, I think I wish I had connected more with nature while I was playing. I think about this, right? You go from inside your house on a game day, right? You go from inside your house, and if you're living in Winnipeg, you usually just go, you might have a garage attached to your house, and you're not spending any time outside. So you go to the practice, you practice, morning skate, come home, go to sleep, go back to the rink, play a game, which is indoors, come home, go to bed. You spent zero time outside. You didn't even see the sun because you're sleeping during the day and you're in a rink in the morning. So I wish I had connected more with nature on my time away from the game. And I started doing that more as I was playing at the end. I was hunting my last year in Winnipeg and fishing and doing more things. And now I find myself, going on more hikes and walking around and spending time at the beach. And so I wish I had done more of that growing up. At times I was too caught up about being in the rinks and like how many summers was I spending all day at the gym and then going right to the rink to skate. So I wish I had scheduled my time a little bit better so I got it all done in the morning and then had more time to kind of be outside and connect, like I said, with nature.
Right,
I think that's a big thing. I don't think a lot of people take the time to do that nowadays, and that's good for the soul right there.
I agree. Have you always been, I guess you talk about learning about yourself. When you were playing without even knowing it, do you think you were always a spiritual person in a sense of just the willingness to learn about yourself? Was that still a little bit in you? Were you raised that way? Or is this a newer side to you that you've come to know as you've moved on from the game?
It's funny you bring us saying that spiritual. So I said to my wife about 2 weeks ago, I said, I think I'm going to start getting more into the spiritual side of things. So, because I've read countless books the last year, really. The last year I've read pretty much anything I could get my hands on about self-growth and just just self-help books, I guess they really are. And I read everything. I have tons of books, and now I'm going around to friends being like, oh, you should read this. Oh, you got this problem? Read this book. I seem to have a book for everything now. So, but the spiritual side, I think we all have that in us, right? It's just, how do you connect with it? How do you let that absorb you? It's tough. Sometimes I'm like, do I even make sense what I'm saying? Like, even in this conversation, there's times where I'm like, I have no idea if I'm making sense but to myself, it makes sense. So I'm just going to keep doing me and not worry about anyone else. And a lot of those books, that's what it goes back to, is why should I care about what anyone else thinks or says about me if I'm doing the right things and I'm trying to improve every day? Why do I care? And like, I got away from that for a long time with sport because I cared about what the GM cared about. I cared about what the coach was thinking. I cared about what my teammates were thinking, what the trainers were thinking. But there was no thought about what I was thinking. So I think a lot of it now is maybe that side's coming out of me, but it was probably always there. I'm sure it's there for everyone. You just got to connect with it.
That's really cool. And I agree with the outside stuff too, that connection to nature. I found, for me, that's something I've gotten into just as of late, just this past year, is working outside and working with the land. And I realized I never really had that connection to it. And then I see people that maybe they were hockey players or athletes or whatever, but those that aren't necessarily athletes go on camping trips and do all these outdoor things that you really don't. I mean, you're playing outside, but you never have that true connection to land or whatnot. And I think it's been powerful for me too, and an escape from everything. And it kind of quiets your mind because it's so physical that you don't get the chance to think about the thousand things you'd rather think about.
That's great. Do you find, I don't know about you, but for myself, I was always scared of getting hurt. Like, I thought I was just going to walk out the house and get hurt like growing up and playing and stuff. I don't know if you ever thought that way as well, but it seems to be pretty common among athletes.
Yeah, that's just it, right? You don't want to get hurt because of the game, or you're not used to riding a BMX bike because you just never did it. You never had the time, so you were worried. And I could relate to that big time.
Yeah, I don't want to ride a bike because my legs are going to be tired for the game or for practice. It's everything you're doing is for sport, right? So
right.
It's funny how you train yourself to think, and it's like, I mean, you're 12 years old. Go ride a bike. I'm sure that practice, maybe you won't be as fast as you usually are, but you know what? Go have a little fun. Like, clear your mind up. Don't be so stressed out.
Yeah, like going back to you bringing up Marner, and his dad had him on in all these ice sessions, et cetera, as we hear with every story, usually on Hockey Night in Canada or whatever sportscast. But it's interesting to, I wonder the numbers on that, right? Like, what are the benefits for that kid? Instead of going on the ice for the 5th time that week, he goes on his bike. And now the benefits of going on the bike and that connection to nature, or those relationships he or she builds, I wonder what the benefit ratio would be on, is that better than going on the ice for the 5th time or the 4th time that same week?
But why is everyone so focused on the play? That's what I keep wondering about. Like, going through this, I'm like, okay, but what about him as a person? Like, I don't know Mitch Marner. I love the way he plays. He's, like I said, he's probably my favorite player. He's definitely my top 3 of favorite players to watch. I don't know anything about the guy, but Joe Schmo might put in all that time and effort, like we talked about earlier, and then not get the same result. Well, what's this done to his mind? I mean, he or she hasn't experienced anything else in life, and obviously there's a lot more life, but if you're chasing the game till you're however old, I mean, at some point you're going to wake up and go like, who the hell am I? Mm-hmm. I had that moment. I woke up last May and said, all right, hockey's over. Who the hell am I right now? So, and that's a hard question to ask yourself at age 30. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people still are trying to figure that out too, right? It's not just hockey players; it's everyone in different walks of life. So that's a $1 million question too.
Right?
Who are you?
What So what happened after that moment? Because I was even following along your journey for the past couple of years, and it seemed as if even on social media or through Instagram, I think there was one post, and I should have gone back and pulled it up, but there was a post where you were like, "Okay, enough's enough. Time to basically come out of the house and start living again," kind of thing. And I wondered what had changed in that moment. What was the turning point? Because now I see you're doing a bit of everything. You're on the ice, and then you're boxing the next day, and then you're all over the place. What was in that moment that in last May that made you get on the we'll put in quotations the right tracks?
I looked at the scale and saw I was getting a little healthy, and I just didn't like the way I was living. I didn't think it was healthy. I didn't think it was who I am as a person. I thought I was getting away from my morals, and I wasn't holding myself at a higher regard. I was just kind of I took some time. I mean, I wanted to take a little time away from training and stuff, but then it got to a point where I just wasn't really happy. I was depressed. I was upset. I was missing the game, but I was more or less missing certain things about my lifestyle. And a big thing for me is working out. I like to be fit. I like to be in the gym. I've been working hard since I was 8 years old in working out. So to take that out of my daily routine, I mean, that's something that's like instilled in me. Like, I am a hardworking individual. Like, I need to go to the gym and work hard. I can't just go lift a couple dumbbells and call it a day. I need to go sweat and really push myself to maximize my potential to be the best person I can be. Whatever that comes down the line. I mean, I got to stay fit and hold that example for when I do have children and for my family.
Do you think it was a slippery slope in a sense that once you were done such a successful career at such a young age, that once you got to that point in May, do you think for other people in your shoes, it could easily go the other way and say, I've reached my dream. I'm successful. I can easily just throw the towel in right now and kind of ride the wave out till whenever. Or is there kind of a bit of a challenge there that you have to realize there's still opportunity here to grow and be someone and do something. But I wondered if that was kind of a teetering point back in May.
Yeah, well, I had a buddy of mine that asked me a couple months ago why I didn't put a post out about retiring or put any attention to it. And I said, like, well, I'm not retired. Like, I'm 30 years old. I'm not retired. Like, I'm going to do more things. So to think I'm just done like that doesn't at all like make sense to me. I'm going to do more things. I'm going to push myself harder. I'm going to be the best Shawn Matthias I can be. And last May, I was just confused. I had no idea what was really going on. I was a shell of myself. I mean, I wasn't who I was before that season. I wasn't who I am today. I mean, I like who I am today. But last year, I mean, to think something like that was over, and then I mean, it really messed me up. It was just hard. It was you're going into the abyss, it felt like. So I felt very unsure of my decision, but I was sure I was going to change in many ways. So I liked that challenge. So it's maybe I retired too early. I don't know, but I don't really care what other people think. For me, it makes sense, and it's really taught me a lot. And I like what has happened in the last year of my life.
That's amazing. On the next adventures side of things, where should we expect to see you putting your eggs now in regards to chasing things and still things to do? Is it in the coaching world? I know I just saw a video online of you renting some skates and getting into the coaching side of things. Is there more hunting that's going to be going on, or employment even? Have you put thought into that?
Well, I've been working with Sportsnet Fan 590, but I like being on the other side of the mic, to be honest. I don't know if talking hockey's the way for me, but I'm very interested and been trying to put together a podcast for the last couple months, and even tried to throw one together really quickly at the beginning of the season that didn't go so well, but at least I was trying. I was putting myself out there, and for like hobbies and stuff. I mean, I'm looking forward to getting better at golf. I joined a membership. I thought it was important to get things organized, to get it out of the house and get that routine going and have things scheduled. Travel. My dad and I, for his 60th birthday, we're going over to Switzerland to hike for 2 weeks together. And then my wife's coming down after, do a trip like that. So, I mean, nothing's going to hold me back. I'm going to keep pushing forward and trying to grow in many different ways. But I can tell you, a couple months ago, it would have been easy to just hide. Like I thought when I retired, I was going to go see the whole world and do all these amazing things. And I found myself drinking scotch and playing 36 holes a day. Maybe that sounds nice, but I mean, I wasn't mentally healthy. I wasn't living a healthy lifestyle. I was just holding myself back. So it just, on January 3rd, I came home from a cottage and I just said, enough's enough. Here we go. We're going to get back to what we know, and that's being fit. That's doing a lot of things. That's pushing yourself. That's just being a good person. So I don't know what the future holds for me, but I know I'm going to keep pushing and keep looking for that next crazy adventure and doing things that I never thought I would be doing, things I thought I would be too scared to do. So I enjoy the coaching part. That was fun working with the kids. I could see myself doing that. But to try and be a coach in the NHL and all that, I have no interest in that. So no interest in working in the NHL and pursuing anything like that.
If you could tell the players of tomorrow one thing about, and I loved how you said putting yourself out there, that kind of stuck with me. And I guess what would your message be to kids from 14, 13, all the way up, or maybe even younger, but all the way up, you know, when they start to think the game could be everything, all the way up to 25? What would be your message of putting yourself out there and the values and whatnot that come with it?
I would say try and soak up as much from the game as you possibly can. Don't let the game soak up as much of you. And what I mean by that is learn. There's so many good things you can learn from. There's great people in this game that you can learn from. You're going to see beautiful places in the world if you get to play really any level. You're going to different towns, different cities. There's so many positives, and you can really make the most of it and make this amazing world for yourself. Or you can be on the other side where you get so caught up about your play and worried about things and thinking about what the coaches are thinking, and then it starts sucking your life out of you and you're not doing the right things anymore. And then you start, you're playing 10 hours of video games when you get home from the rink, or you're drinking or doing whatever your vice is, and you're not really bettering yourself. You're just kind of doing nothing with your time. And it's like great that you're playing a sport, but if you're only on the ice for 2 hours a day, I mean, there's still 22 hours in a day that you could be doing other things to maximize your true potential. So I would stress to those young players, I'm like, just soak up as much as you can out of that positive mindset and just keep growing and being better. And the game will lead you in some amazing places, and just try not to get too caught up in the negatives. It's easy to do that.
Wow. That's wicked. I love it. I think I'm ready to go back into the game and transition out again, I think.
I wish I had a time machine too, so I could just go back and do it all over again. It is a beautiful sport, and it's a lot of fun, and the transitioning side it's tough. I mean, I talk to a lot of guys about it. It's hard to accept it, right? It's what you grew up wanting to do your whole life, and then to one day be like, it's over. For me, it was just cut the cord. It's done. What's done is done. Being a realist and just saying to yourself, you're like, all right, you're never going to play in the NHL again. You're never going to score another goal in the NHL. You're never going to play in front of that crowd again. Accept it. Move forward. What can you do today to make your life better? What can you do today that's going to give you purpose and cause and give you the same thrill as scoring a goal? I'm still trying to find that. Sometimes I get close to that feeling and I'm like, this is great, but still looking for it. So hopefully I figure that out, and maybe it is doing a podcast and meeting lots of interesting new people. So like yourself.
Well, I love that that optimism or courage or excitement is about, it's not, there's no fixed endpoint. It's just an excitement about that there's more to learn and you're on a journey and stuff like that. And I think that's a powerful message in itself, that energy is coming off of you and you don't even know where it's going to go. It's just being on something. It's chasing something. It's walking into the unknown of something. And that should, I hope that message gets through to a lot of athletes too, that are in the process of figuring out what else can I do. Well, half the battle is just realizing that it's putting yourself out there, realizing you can, and there's something there. Well, you'll find it on that journey, but get on it because it's exciting. So,
yeah, you can really do anything you want. You just got to put the time, effort, and pay attention to all the small details. And I mean, you can really do anything you want. You just got to go for it.
I know you're years ahead of me, but I would just say I know your story will help a lot of people, and I hope you continue to share it. I look up to you and wish you the best, and hopefully I'll see you around depth training with Edgy in the near future.
And we'll have to do it again sometime.
That brings us to the end of another Heroic Minds podcast. If you know an athlete that would benefit from hearing this, please share the episode. As always, if you have any comments, constructive criticisms, want to keep the conversation going, shoot me an email. My email is in the description of this episode. I'm Ben Finelli. This is the Heroic Minds podcast. We'll talk again soon.